So let's talk about inflation. That thing that puts some prices up beyond reasonable measure. Like a high shelf that you've got to find a stool for, and when you find a stool, somebody's already got the stuff and put it on an even higher shelf. Mel Stride was on about inflation this morning. It's come down to 2%. Can his government really take the credit for that? You betcha.
So, yes, this is really important news, Emma, and good morning. The Prime Minister quite rightly set as a prime objective for this government to get inflation down. It was up over 11%.
Quite amusing, actually. It's like somebody chucking a ball up into the air and then claiming it's their responsibility and hard work which have made it land on the ground.
Back in the autumn, it's now down bang on the Bank of England target. At 2%.
It doesn't matter how often you say it, you're still not responsible for it. I mean, how long is it going to be before you make the claim that the reason England won was your stewardship of the economy?
That's going to be really important in terms of taking pressure off hard-pressed families up and down the country, also good for business and growth going forward. Can we take credit?
Yes, of course you can.
In part, yes.
Told you so.
Because controlling inflation is a matter both of monetary policy, which is interest rates and the Bank of England, but it's also an accommodative fiscal policy to make sure you work in the same direction as the bank. So we had tough decisions to take, for example, around higher than inflation wage demands and how we responded to that to keep control of those wage cost pressures within the economy.
Yeah, it's always good to keep wages down, isn't it? Multi-billion-dollar companies not even paying their staff minimum wage, yet walking away with massive profits, bonuses for executives, and those shareholders are just rolling in it.
So, yes, I do believe that we can take, at least in part, some significant significant effect of our policies on bringing it down.
We think we can take a significant part. We think we can take at least a slice of a significant part. We think we can have a significant... We want it all of it. Give it to us. The plaudits, the awards, the praise. We brought down inflation single-handed. It went up due to global pressures which we had no control over, but thanks to our magnificent wisdom and prudence, we have brought it down, and we continue to crush it. Unless it goes up again.
Do you think you will get the credit in the sense of you're in an election now? It was called off the back of the last inflation figures. That good news, as you are describing it, is too late for your party's fortunes to be reversed. People remember those price hikes.
It's not a question of remembering them. They're happening now. You don't remember what happened now. You're in the moment.
So, well, I hope also people will remember that we got us through COVID.
Mark it off on your bingo card. COVID, there we are.
When the economy shrank by 10% overnight, most people thought we'd have millions of people unemployed.
We have. There's no think about it. We have got more millions of people unemployed. What are you talking about?
Families' livelihoods destroyed.
Families' livelihoods were destroyed by COVID, which saved you having to get out of bed and actually do anything because COVID was doing the job for you.
Rishi Sunak as Chancellor avoided that with the furlough scheme.
Now, before anyone says anything, the furlough scheme wasn't actually Rishi Sunak's idea. He didn't actually want to do it. But across Europe, other governments are introducing similar schemes, albeit more generous than the furlough scheme in this country. And it really forced Sunak's hand. Also, the economic damage of coming out of the pandemic with double-digit unemployment. Although with the lack of government support post-pandemic, a lot of people are suffering from long COVID, PTSD, depression, anxiety, as a direct result of living through probably one of the most badly managed events in the entire history of this country.
We also supported people, of course, through high inflation with cost of living payments, billions of them, many of them from my department, to low-income households, help with energy bills, etc.
Which you have just stopped. And the other thing is a lot of people weren't entitled to those because they were all means tested, and if you couldn't provide decent statements or financial transaction lists, they weren't interested in helping you. Not that they were that interested in the first place.
Going forward, look, there's a very clear binary choice here.
Well, it seems to me the binary choice is, do we want to be flushed down the toilet or dropped in the cesspit? Mel Stride then went on about Keir Starmer and the Conservatives and the choices that the country makes, so we'll just get through that. I've got to be fair, that was actually preferable to the real interview. He was then asked about Grant Shapps' comments earlier this week about the Conservatives really facing not even opposition.
Do you think you're going to win the election?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, and I think it'd be very foolish of anybody to predict the outcome of any election.
I think the idea and the image that's conjured up there of going into a tent at a fun fair and a wizened old hag sat at the other side staring into a crystal ball who sweeps back her headscarf to reveal it's actually Mel Stride, I think there's a good probability you just turn on your heels and walk back out the door. Silver would not cross his path.
But where Grant is absolutely right is that the polls are being stuck broadly in the same position for some time now.
Yes, because you're rubbish. There's a tiny clue there. People have responded. They don't like what you've done to public services. They don't like what you've done to the country. They don't like the racism that you've engendered. They don't like the performative cruelty on the vulnerable. All these things, for some reason, for some unknown reason, people have taken objection to it, and you're charging them for it, and nobody knows where the money's gone. Not one person knows where the money's gone. But you're going to be leaving Downing Street and your Whitehall offices with pretty big suitcases, I would imagine.
And that shows us a long way behind Labour. And indeed, if you take those polls and extrapolate that into a result, you could end up seeing a Labour government.
And we're back to the usual guff that comes out of the script, so we'll...
450 or 460 seats, a large majority virtually in the history of this country. And I think the question that Grant is servicing, which I think is a perfectly sensible question to ask, is that...
And Mulstride was then asked once again why Grant Shapps thought the Conservatives couldn't win the election.
So, what I would say to that, Emma, is we have got the best part of 2 weeks now before the general election day arrives.
2 weeks. You have 14 years. 2 weeks. 14 years you've had to make improvements in this country. 14 years. We've got the highest tax take in 70 years. We've got a health service in tatters. There's no police. There's no fire service. There's no social care. There's no childcare. Everything's falling apart. You've had 14 years of stewarding this economy. And what have you done? You've lined your pocket and your mates' pockets and everyone else. Now you're going to waltz off into the sunset with absolutely no consequences. And it is not acceptable.
What we have to focus on is getting our message through. And I'm confident if we get our message through, those polls will move. But we've got to keep working at getting the message through. And the message is you have a binary choice. You have a choice between a party that has turned the economy around now.
Whose economy? Whose economy have you turned round? Because this one you haven't turned round. You've just driven it right off a cliff into the sea. You've kept on going. And right now we're in the Mariana Trench.
Got inflation down to target.
No, you haven't.
Has got growth going.
No, you didn't.
So on, and is now going to be pushing taxes in a clear downward direction.
I don't really see how you can push taxes in any other direction. It's 70% at the moment. I mean, unless you're going to start collecting the skin off people's forearms, there's no way you can collect more taxes. People just haven't got it, and people are angry and hurting. But what are you going to do about it? Oh, well, we might give you some tax cuts after the election if you're quite lucky, you stupid bunch of plebs. That was Mel Stride this morning on the Today programme. I don't know if you want to vote for him or based on that performance. If you do, I have a 1978 Datsun with 3 miles on the clock and absolutely no rust.